everybody. Welcome back to the conversation series. I have the pleasure of having Rajeev Singh on here with me today, CEO of Accolade. I'm actually quite nervous for this episode because
Wow.
this man I have known for almost my entire life. I've gotten to learn a ton from him, but I've also gotten to work underneath him as a leader. So I am incredibly excited to have him on here, CEO of Accolade, personalized healthcare company. But thank you, Raj, for being here with me today.
Oh, fired up to be here, Danielle. Good to see
Yeah,
you.
good to see you. I want to jump in first of all to good old Michigan boy growing up and what that time was like, what got you sparked into business in the first place, and your interest in all of the things that you've done in your life.
Yeah, good old Michigan boy for sure. Super proud of the fact that I'm from Michigan. Like, I love that place. I'm actually not just from Michigan, I'm from Portage, Michigan. And it's a small town. It's a small, I think the population was 30,000 or something like that when I grew up there. And many of my dearest friends are still there. And so, I don't know. I think you get a grounding in being real and being in caring about people first and not about what they do and not about how much money they make, but instead about their families and about the life they're living. Uh, anyway, I live now on the West Coast, but when I identify where I'm from, I've been in Seattle for 30 plus years now. But when I identify where I'm from, I say Michigan, like I'm a Michigan kid. And this year, because the Detroit Lions were this damn close,
Close.
uh, I might have said it more than I usually do.
It was there were quite a few people who were checking in on me, asking how TC was doing during those games, and I said, he might have a heart attack here during one of these games.
I had to watch every playoff game by myself. I couldn't be around people. So I sat by myself. Sometimes my wife Jill would be in there, but uh, it was magical. It was magical while the run lasted. That's for damn sure.
I had quite a few of the gentlemen that you were talking about that you grew up with. I had quite a few of them texting me like, "How are we doing down there? Are we all right?" And I'm like, "How are you guys doing up there? Are we all still alive? Have we pissed off wives and everything already? Like, what's the situation?" And
Uh,
I think a lot of them were sitting in the same seats of sitting in rooms alone watching these games, a little stressed out.
it was so good. I didn't sit for the whole. I don't, and not one of those three games was I sitting. I was standing. But anyway, they'll win it next year. Next year the Lions win it.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm not the first person to call that one, so I won't say you heard it here first.
Yep. No, and I think there was during the last game there was a threat of if they were going to the Super Bowl, there was going to be a Super Bowl trip for a couple of you, and
Oh,
I was like, dear God, no, please.
that wasn't even a threat. That was a fact. That was a fact. I actually bought the tickets,
Yeah.
Danielle. I bought the ticket. I had to sell them. Good. Luckily, turns out you can sell them for real money. But
Yeah.
uh, I bought the tickets. We were going,
Yep.
and I
Oh,
was gonna drag all those guys, whether they wanted to or not. We were going to Vegas. That's
you
for damn
you
sure.
had you had TC with you. He's like, Raj and I are going. He said we are going. And so
Yes.
I knew at least the two of you were going to be at the Super Bowl if the Lions were there. That's for sure.
Oof, man, so close. Anyway.
So close.
Anyway, proud of where I'm from, Danielle. I'm proud of it. Like I think it's everybody. There's an element of where you're from that's supposed to carry through into the way you behave the rest of your life. I'm a lot older now, but there's a lot of what I learned in Portage, Michigan. That's still a part of the way I think I'm supposed to behave.
Well, and I love the point that you made that it's not work for everybody, it's family, it's who they care about, it's friendships. And I think what's great is I've gotten to witness you guys coming together once a year and going to a
Mm,
hockey game or a sporting event, but it's like no time has ever passed because you guys just pick right back up, you have a
yeah.
great time together, and that's what I think is so important in the point you made.
Don't you think, Danielle? Like a lot of things can change. Like we can have kids, we can have families, we can have our careers can change, we might take different jobs. But if who we are remains constant, then it's pretty easy to reconnect, and it's like you never miss anything because it's still the same person underneath. Uh, and that's a reflection of grounding, that's a reflection of people understanding who they really are.
I wanna flash back to 1993 of Concur getting off the ground, and this was something you co-founded, something you helped lead for, gosh, what, almost 20 something years, 23.
21 years, yeah.
What, you and your brother created this. What was the process first of, in 1993, getting a travel company off the ground and then continuing to build that to the point where it was over 4,000 employees and
Yeah.
something that became so massive?
It was my brother Steve, who's 7 years older than me, and Mike Hilton, uh, who were my co-founders. So the three of us founded the company in '93. And I just moved from Michigan. We ended up in Seattle. We made a couple of bounces along the way, but ended up in Seattle to start the company. And in '93, we were really looking to where you could find software engineers. And by the way, like if you were starting this company in 2024, you could start it in Detroit. There's plenty of software engineers now in Detroit or anywhere. But then we were looking at San Francisco, we were looking at Seattle, we were looking at Austin, Texas, and we ended up, for a variety of reasons, choosing Seattle, and I've been here ever since. Back then, standing up a company, it was a little harder to raise money back then. It wasn't like quite the environment. Now everyone really understands tech. Everyone really understands the opportunity for process reinvention, and how new technology, in today's universe, that's AI. In 1995, 1996, that was the internet was really being invented as it relates to business applications of the internet. It took a little time back then for people to understand that, I was 24 years old, my brother was 30, 31, like in that context, some young people asking for money to go build a company to do travel and expense reporting. Took us a minute. But we were lucky. We found this interesting idea. Everybody who works has to fill out expense reports eventually or book travel eventually. And so we found a space where nobody had really built anything. We stuck with it for 21 years and it turned into something real. It turned into a real business that when we sold it had 25,000 customers and, to your point, 4,000, 5,000 employees that we cared a lot about. They were a pretty amazing crew. Yeah, you're one of the, right. Your dad was a part of the journey really early, and so yeah. I mean, we went through a lot there, Danielle. We went from the web to selling it as a service and we went through some ups and downs during that time period. And the people who stuck it out were lucky enough to. The people who stuck it out and persevered through some of those downtimes were lucky enough to see some pretty positive outcomes at the end.
Yeah. I always have the conversation too with dad of, you guys that were in a really cool spot where you got to see the evolution of software as well, and like the internet, how that has changed and how selling software has changed.
Yeah.
And I think it's really unique because I think a lot of people don't understand the movement software has made in the last 10, 20, 30 years when you guys started Concur and just selling software for so many different companies.
Yeah, 100%. 1,000%, Danielle. I mean, uh, the internet fundamentally changed everything in life, but one of the things it really had a foundational impact on was how enterprise software was sold. And what we've seen in the last, let's call it from the mid 90s to now, so 30 years, in that 30 years, the entire infrastructure of software has been replaced by software delivered over the web. Software as a service is obviously what it's called. The next 30 years are going to be a new thing, right? Which is like, yes, software is going to be delivered over the web, but it's going to be the capacity to deliver service is going to be foundationally impacted by by generative AI and by large language models and how they're going to impact the way services are delivered. And I think what you're seeing now, like the next 30 years is going to be about the blending of software and services, because people don't just need software, they need people to help them finish the service, the last mile. And it might not always be people, it'll be machines that can add the insight that people have traditionally delivered. It's going to be a really exciting time. Like, I don't know if I'm going to be working on it for the next 30 years, but you'll be working on it, and it's going to be really, really cool.
When the whole conversation of AI really came around, Dad handed it to Haley and I and said, "Learn this." He said, "Because this is where things are going." He said, "You're either get in front of it and learn it, or you're going to get behind it and you're just never going to fully understand it."
Yeah.
And so I think it will be extremely interesting to see how AI plays into every single industry, from cybersecurity, healthcare, whatever it is. It's going to be really interesting to learn how it functions in each
Yeah.
industry.
I agree. I agree. If you want to be a leading company, if you want to be a growth company, if you want to be a company that is leading in your respective industry, if you're not already investing here materially, you're behind, without question.
US co-founders sold Concur 2014 to SAP. You made
Yeah,
the transition out of there in 2015. And then we hop into a different industry. We hop into
sure.
something that is brand new for you. First of
Yeah.
all, the learning curve from the travel world into healthcare. What did you have to go do to just absolutely learn everything that you possibly could?
Yeah, it was a big shift, Danielle. It was the reality is the safer bet would have been to stay in travel and to keep doing what we were doing, to maybe take the next generation of what Concur was going to be. Meaning Concur, had we not sold it, wasn't going to stand still. It was going to keep evolving. And what that evolution was, there was serious consideration. I thought seriously about maybe I should just go do that. Uh, but I wanted, personally, I wanted to do something more human impacting. Not that Concur wasn't good for people, but healthcare in this country is not very good. And I thought it would be fun with this is the last thing big thing I'm gonna do. I did 21 years of that. I'm now almost 9 years into this. Uh, I wanted it to be big, like massive, and I wanted it to be human. And so I had yet to study. To me, studying is like, uh, I think in the context of business and the way a business works, if you find out where the money is, you find out who's making the money and you find out what they're doing right and what they're doing wrong, and then you can start to reinvent it. And so to me, it was about understanding the healthcare supply chain. Uh, People get really terrible service, and yet there's $4 trillion being spent, and there's some huge companies making enormous profits. Why are they making enormous profits while everybody hates the system? If you do enough study there, you find out, like, oh, okay, I kind of get it. I understand why the profit motives are misaligned to actually delivering great service. And then you start working on fixing that. And that was the study for me. Like, I started studying in the year between Concur and Accolade. And once I felt like I had a hypothesis, Accolade became real for me.
It's interesting because now yeah, I was with Accolade for 3 years, but going now into a doctor's office and going into any kind of appointment, you're sitting there and you now have the logical, like you have this standpoint where you're like, I understand what you guys are trying to do now. I understand why we have this $4 trillion worth of
Yeah,
debt
yeah.
and this massive problem in healthcare. And it's so interesting to have that insight because a lot of people don't have that side of the story, and getting to see the struggles every single day to just get a decent healthcare.
Yeah, I mean, think about it, Danielle. One out of every $5 in this country is spent on healthcare. One out of every five. Like, if you drive down a road in North Carolina or in Seattle or wherever and look at the billboards on the side of the road, they're all healthcare billboards because one out of $5 is spent on it. And uh, in that context here in the United States, we spend twice as much as everybody else does, but our outcomes are worse. And so, so yeah, there is a lot to be done but it starts, and this is why I love what we do. Like there's always more to do, but I love what we do, and that it starts with building a human relationship and finding out what people are trying to achieve. And uh, and oftentimes the things that keep them from getting the care that they need don't have to do with their health. It has to do with financial barriers. You know, I have a $2,000 deductible and I have $400 in the bank. What am I supposed to do? Or, you know, I'm balancing between my full-time job where I can't get time off to try to see a doctor. What do I do? Like solving those problems oftentimes unlocks the capacity for people to get the health care that they need. People sometimes mistake, Danielle, like fixing healthcare isn't about getting somebody with 35 BMI to get to 15 BMI. Like of course, that would be great.
Yes.
But in many respects, if we can just improve access to care, get people more preventative care, help them understand that there are lower cost medications that they can use, and ensure that they stay on their journey and get help along the way, you can massively improve people's lives. Yes, it would be great if they stopped smoking. It would be great if they did these other things. But if you just did these things, they'd have a high quality life and we'd have a lot lower cost.
After you went through all of your education, I just want to hit on the why Accolade. You came on as their CEO back in
Yeah,
2015, but what stood out about Accolade and what they were doing in the very beginning?
yeah. Accolade had like 5 customers when I joined, and it was what they had proven is that just building a human relationship was enough to lower cost, and so that was a part of it. They'd proven that with 5 customers because the 5 customers were big, like 100,000 members each. The second thing was I wanted to go after the whole problem, Danielle. I mean, I didn't want to go work on diabetes or musculoskeletal or a particular condition. I wanted to look at healthcare holistically. Like I wanted to look at the whole supply chain. And Accolade was trying to look at the whole supply chain. Uh, and so those two things were the things that initially grabbed me. And the idea that the company really needed an infusion of technology. And so for me it was, you know, I had an opportunity, obviously another opportunity to work with your dad, an opportunity for Mike to join, my co-founder at Concur, other people, Rob Kavanaugh, other people who had some expertise and who wanted to apply that expertise to build something at scale. Like that was the final straw for me. Like the other two were the business drivers, and then the capacity to do it with a group of people who I had total faith in. That was the clincher.
I think a lot of people said it was like a Concur reunion in a way of like everybody kind of who was brand new to the group was like, oh, these are a lot of Concur people. I'm like, you shouldn't be shocked by this. I'm like, you've got people who are great leaders here that have worked together for years, know what makes each other tick and what how they work best. I was like, these people are going to go and kick some ass whether they're happy about it every single day or not. I was like, these people are driven to go and do what they need to do.
Yeah, you know, Danielle, looking back on it, there was a bunch of people at Accolade who were like, "Who the hell are all these guys showing up?" And you know, they had to do another way. Maybe I would have staggered it or changed it a little bit, but you know, in the end, hindsight is 2020. I agree. You know, the people who ultimately are a part of the journey, even now, 8, 9 years later, uh, we're willing to study. Like we're willing to really dig in and understand. Uh, I think, you know, now it's not a question of who was at Concur before or not. It's very much like who did the work to really understand healthcare. Because now, you know, it's 9 years we're wearing an Accolade jersey. It's been a long time.
Going in 2020
Yeah,
was a hard year. That was
totally.
as a healthcare company, COVID happens. What goes through your mind first of all when something like a pandemic happens as a healthcare company in supporting your people, but also the customers that you are helping every single day?
Yeah, I think Danielle, like it was super instructive for me. Uh, And I think we started this conversation talking about roots, like where do we come from? Uh, that's a global crisis, right? And I think I'm really proud of Accolade and the way Accolade responded. And the reason is, for a moment, we were just about to, right? I think we had filed to go public in February of 2020, maybe January, something like that. But right, the world shuts down in March, and uh, and we could have all just sort of sat there and commiserated around, like, man, we were going to go public, it was going to be great, and nobody did that. What we did instead was say, like, the world's actually in some trouble. We don't know what this means. None of us have ever lived through anything like this. What can we do to help? Like, what can we do to help? Like, let's stop worrying about ourselves and let's just try to help. And we tried to help our customers. We built some new products, like, to help people. Like, there was essential workers who had to get back to work, and companies needed a way to track them, to understand whether they were actually showing up to work, what, et cetera, et cetera. So we built a whole bunch of stuff that wasn't on the roadmap, but we stopped what we were doing and said, like, we're going to help our customers figure out how to keep their people safe. And here in Seattle, we, like, a whole bunch of us banded together. We built software that had nothing to do with Accolade, to help people donate to, all these restaurants and shops that were closing. And it was crazy, man. Like, we raised, a couple $1 billion, like crazy, like, hundreds of millions of dollars, that ultimately turned into more than that. And so, in the overall context of things, yeah, the world went to hell for a minute, and actually it was a while that the world went to hell. I think when those things happen, like, you can either, like, focus on, like, what are you going to do for yourselves? And we worked really hard to make sure the business was doing well and our people were taken care of. But you also got to, like, open your mind to, like, the world is bigger than your little story. Go figure out how you can go help. And that's what we tried to do.
You guys, and I remember that time too, like you guys raised a lot of money for people in Seattle too. Like it was incredible the amount that you and Jill, it was so fun to see because I think it put into perspective for a lot of people, like you said, like it's not just about you. Like go help people, go try to do what you can in the community because there are a lot of people who are worse off than you are, who are needing deeper help than you might need help. It was a very interesting time to kind of look around in the community and really see everybody and what they needed.
It was a thing called All in Seattle here. And it wasn't just Jill and I, it was like a bunch of families, and we raised tens of millions of dollars. And the interesting thing underneath all of that was nobody worried about who got credit. Everybody worried about, like, there's just a bunch of people who had jobs yesterday who don't have jobs today. Like, how are they going to live? And we knew the government would come eventually to help, but governments take a long time to move. And so it was in a moment of crisis, like this moment of, like, well, look how cool people are really. Like, when we don't worry about what their politics are or any of that bullshit, and we just focus on, like, are we all trying to help? It turns out we all kind of mostly are trying to help.
And you mentioned like Accolade was supposed to go public in February. You did go public that year. We did go public that year though, and that was the first digital healthcare company to go to do a public offering.
Yeah, in the pandemic. Yeah, I mean, there had been some others the year before, but before the pandemic, none of them had gone public in the pandemic. We were the first ones. It was a crazy time, Danielle, that the markets. I remember being on the, like, I'll run sometimes in the morning on the treadmill, and I'm looking at the news, and the markets open on the West Coast at 6:30, and I'd watch the markets when the pandemic hit. The markets just went like that. And so every day I would get on the treadmill, I'd look and be like, well, I guess we're not going public. Uh, and then a lot of miraculous things happened, but the market came back. And when the market came back, we were ready. And I'm super thankful. Like, the company, the opportunities that have presented itself to this company, would not have otherwise presented themselves had we not taken advantage of the opportunity to be a public company. It's been a choppy couple years in the public markets as the world has sort of readjusted to higher interest rates, et cetera. But the bottom line is the accountability of the public markets, the access to really smart capital, all of that was required for us to build a business we're still trying to build.
A couple years ago, Accolade, we went through this whole process and we came out as a personalized healthcare company. And what had changed that was how has that personalized healthcare carried through the whole entire business and going out into the market and the mission that Accolade has now?
So we added primary care, we added doctors so we could actually deliver care. We added specialty care physicians to help with medical certainty. So if someone you know who's an Accolade member was diagnosed with cancer or told they needed to go get a orthopedic surgery, we can get you to one of the top specialists in the country to determine if you're on the right course of care. Right? We'll collect your medical records, we'll help you understand it. All of that is built off of a data set that's unique. And the reason why we call it personalized healthcare is, what if every person who's treating you knows every condition you have, knows every medication you're on, knows all the doctors you're seeing, and has a plan for you, whether that's a nurse, a doctor, a pharmacist, or a specialist, and in that context could actually push that data back to the brick and mortar physicians in your neighborhood. We think where US healthcare falls down, Danielle, is it falls down when people fall through the cracks. It's not that there's not good doctors. There are fantastic doctors in this country. It's not that there's not great equipment. It's the best equipment in the world. Where it falls down is one doctor doesn't know what the other one's doing. One medication is prescribed when there's not an awareness that there's another medication that collides with it that's prescribed. We need longitudinal care. We're collecting the data. We're a healthcare services company that has an enormous amount of technology to collect the data to help people be informed. And now we're using that data to push back into the brick and mortar care system. And that's how you really personalize things. Understand it. Personalization is really about, do you know who I am? And do you know what I'm going through? And you need data to do that.
Absolutely. And I think that's the point too, that you put that data out to everybody, and that's the stuff that sticks out some of the times is that, hey, this is the 1 in 5 or whatever it may be in terms of if you put a number out there to everybody, everybody's like, holy shit, we kind of get it now. Like this paints a really perfect picture of what
Yeah.
we're dealing with right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, we spend 20% of US GDP, to that point of 1 to 5, 20% of the US gross domestic product is healthcare. Other countries, it's closer to 6%, 7%. And so it's enormous. And if you think about it in that context, businesses based in the United States are carrying a heavier load and are at a competitive disadvantage to global companies because of the inefficiency of our healthcare system. It's a problem. It's a real problem.
I think COVID really shined a light on it. You see so many people who are in have so much need for help right now in the healthcare industry.
Bingo, bingo. I think good news. There's companies like ours out there. The world is waking up to it. I think the more CEOs and CFOs and CHROs wake up to this, the better off we'll be. Look, if there's 330 million people in the country, 170 million of them get their health care from work, from their employer. And employers are free enterprise. And so, I think the joy of it is they have every motivation for their people to be healthy. They want them to show up to work and do great jobs. They also want costs to come down. And they're good business people. And so, those three things should put them in a position to make smart, rational choices. But they got to really engage and seek to understand. And it's happening more and more.
And what I loved my time at Accolade, like the partners that Accolade has, like you had described, the Accolade had focused on the full supply chain, but you do have people like Carrot and all of these individual partners who do have those specific focuses. And it was always such a treat to get to learn from each and every single one of those companies exactly how their focus and their change that they're making. How do you approach, or your teams approach, what partners to work with and how it's going to fit in with what Accolade's doing?
Well, our customers are super helpful, right? We've got 1,200 customers now, or more than 1,000 customers, I should say, uh, and our customers are constantly surveying the market just like we are. So that's a part of the story. They help us see the categories that matter to them. We look at spend. You know, Carrot, the company you mentioned, works in fertility. It's sort of on the journey for families trying to have children, which is very expensive if you're seeking care in that particular space, or can be very expensive if you don't have the right help. And so that's another way. You look at the dollars being spent and you try to find answers that can work. I think the last thing is acknowledging that from those spend bands, you got to look at unique solutions. So diabetes, 9% of the population of the United States is diabetic. That's a big driver of cost in the country. You find a partner like Virta in that space that's actually working on diabetes reversal. Not like, how do I control your diabetes? How do I get you off of insulin and lower your A1C? Those types of solutions should be made available more broadly, and we can help do that when we find a partner like that one and offer them to our customers.
Yep. And fantastic stories too. Like the diabetes is something that is so heavily focused on, and something that I think, I got to hear the personal stories of Shantanu and his mother. Uh,
Mm.
and I think it's stories like those that kind of open your eyes more and realize like, hey, there is some great change happening.
100%. 100%, Danielle. It's like it's so often the case right now in the United States and around the world, but in the United States is where we're focused, where brilliant innovation exists, but nobody knows about it. And, diabetes is an insidious disease. My mom's a type 1 diabetic. Unfortunately, Verta's not a great fit for her. Uh, it's an insidious disease. I've watched her live with it, and it's terrible. And so we have answers in the market that actually, if people are willing to adopt the Virta methodology, can actually get them out of that state. Like, how magical is that? We need more people to try it. They need to know about it.
It's so cool to, like you were saying, like your mom doesn't fit that, but there are so many people who are that next stage. And it's great. It's just great to see the change there, especially
100%.
when it's in the family. You just want to make sure that everybody's taken care of in the right way.
But I think the best part about working at Accolade, Danielle, the best part. I mean, I love the people here. I love the work we do, and it all manifests in these stories, like Shantanu's mom, or like others who've used the service. Like there was a story recently of a family whose son was about to have his leg amputated, and expert medical opinion saved his leg. And this is a 16-year-old boy about to lose his leg. You read those stories and you're like, man, okay, even on the hard days, I like working here.
What I've loved too is the Autism Cares program, and what that work has done for the government side, families who have people who are in the military who have served, and what that work is. Because I mean, I have background with working with kids with autism, and they are
Yeah,
the greatest kids in the world. So I loved that this was something fun that I got to learn about myself, and the change and the work that Accolade is doing to help those families. It's amazing because there is no easy day for someone who has a child with autism. There's nothing easy about it.
I think it's that for sure, Danielle. And those families need help, right? Like the moms and dads who are dealing with it have have to find the right kind of care. They've got to understand the special accommodations required in their schools. All of those things, like you're not prepared for. And this is true overall when you become a parent, but you're not prepared generally. But certainly when you have a child whose needs are different than other children, understanding how to go about achieving the care you need, you could use someone to help you. And that program, like this idea of the autism care work, is so extraordinary because these families oftentimes are so overwhelmed. Not just the child, but the families are so overwhelmed that they're just like giving up. And we can bring them back from giving up to feeling empowered and actually moving forward in their lives. It's extraordinary.
My last question for you is, we used to be in team meetings, and every team meeting we were in, there was always a question of what your current reading list or book suggestions were. So what is top of Raj's book list right now?
I just finished the Elon Musk biography. Uh, a little bit before that, I read Michael Lewis, who wrote Moneyball and all that sort of stuff, wrote a book about Sam Bankman-Fried. I forget what it's called. I think it's Infinite Money or something like that, which I'd recommend actually, especially as things are like progressing post the FTX
Yeah.
kamikaze. I'm right now. I'm actually going old school right now. I'm reading Hemingway. I'm reading A Movable Feast. A Movable Feast. For I don't know. I think my actually, you know what? Serena bought it for me. My daughter bought it for me for Christmas, and so I'm reading that right now. But yeah, I'm always reading something. It's actually it's like it's how my brain rests.
Yeah, I do it. I try to end my day that way, as just a like a closing of the day, something else to take my mind off of whatever has happened. So
Oh
I have,
yeah,
yeah,
totally, totally. Oh, you know the other thing I'm reading, but actually I'm 55. I'm reading it. I recommend it to you 16-year-old. Read Peter Attia, Attia, Peter Attia, Outlive. It's a book about longevity and about the things we should be doing and the way to think about our health proactively as opposed to after we get sick.
I took a recommendation from Greg Smith and just finished reading Bono's book,
Oh,
which
nice. I should read that.
for me, I like growing up in a household where that's kind of the music that's played all the time.
100%.
Growing up with you guys,
100%.
like I was like, you too. And so getting to hear from him, and I told Dad, I was like, I never knew that they started as young as they did, and exactly what Bono went through and all his activism. So it was
Yeah.
really interesting to read about.
Is it an autobiography or did somebody write that about him? Did he
No,
write it?
he wrote it. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'll buy that. I'll read that.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
was super interesting. Dad did the Audible version because they actually play the music and
Oh, nice.
reading it. So he did the lazy way, but
I like that. I like that.
well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time with me and walking me through all the facets of your life and Accolade and the healthcare you are trying to go solve right now. So I appreciate it.
It's been too long, Chief. It's great to see you.
Great to see you. And as always, all of Accolade socials are going to be linked down below, as well as Raj's LinkedIn. So go follow along on all his stuff. Raj, just thank you. And as always, I will see you guys back here next time.
Be
Bye.
good.